Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Excited to be with you as always. I am waiting on Karlza to log in here, so he's not here yet. So I figured I'll take this opportunity to, first of all, say hi to you quickly here and let you know as to what I'm working on for you for next week. There is a major development, by the way, regarding India, which I will be addressing next week. But this one just came out of Riyadh. Given that Saudi Arabia has now kicked over 100,000 Indian citizens for being involved in espionage on behalf of Israel. Yep, you heard it. So I have a lot to say about this topic comes the beginning of next week. But for now, we're just going to wait on Karlza to be here. Let me just say hi quick to Willie Homan, as always. Michael Chang, good to see you from the Philippines. Please make sure to type in where you are joining me from, if you would like to. So, Li Yang, good morning to you. Faron de la Paix, good to see you from Quebec. Exile the Knights, good to see you. I read your comments there, the observations. So very, very interesting one. Thank you for sharing with the community there. Who else is here? YYTT, good to see you. Hong Luan, good to see you as always. Seven Azure, good to see you, and hello to you. Phil, as always, good to see you. Dave H, good to see you. And Karakolak from Central Florida, good to see you here. All right, we'll be waiting on Karlza to come in here. So just to give you a heads up as to I reached out to Jayant Bhandari. I'm waiting to hear from him because I like him to address the issues of India. If he's not able to make it, then I will be doing the analysis for you. I am also finalized the analysis I'm going to be doing for the community regarding the geopolitical outlook for 2026 as to what to look for. And I'm doing a comprehensive analysis. So make sure to join me on that one because I will be addressing all continents, basically. So this is not limited only to the US or Asia, North America or Asia and so forth. So let me see if Karlza, yeah, he's not here yet. So we're waiting to, sometimes with the connections, so it might be a little bit challenging, but that's usually he's always on time here anyway. So we're going to be addressing, as I said, on next week, I will be dealing with those topics regarding what India's been doing to Christians. I mean, I'm sure you saw the disturbing images coming out of India, the takedown, the destruction of the Christmas decorations for the Christians who are celebrating. So I am starting to doubt the ability of Modi governments to take control of that, because I will not rule out that probably is Modi government that is giving the green light to those fanatics, the Hindu fanatics. You know, you have now the rest of the Western world starting to wonder about allowing Indians to come over here. You know, I'm starting to have my doubts here in my own country because the elements coming over to not only to the US, but Europe and elsewhere, it's not promising. So this is why I did the survey on the for the community. And thank you to those who participated when I asked the two major questions. Let me just see the outcome here. The first question I ask is, should the US or collective West ban visas for Indian citizens? 48% of you said yes, 41% said no, and 12% said we don't know. So, and I appreciate that also, because there is never an answer to everything. But the second survey that I posted for the community, and this has to do with the recent disturbing images coming out of India targeting Christians and destroying Christmas decorations. Do you believe Modi's government gave the green light to the Hindu fanatics to do so? 72% of you said yes, 15% said no, and 13% said don't know. So next week, when I address this topic, I will be providing you images that I got a hold of, and this way you will be able to see with your own eyes as to for a nation like that. And you wonder why now the collective West is reconsidering. Trump already put a ban on the H-1B visas for Indians, and I am in support of that. You know, you can have elements come into this country to destroy and destruct the way of living. It's kind of different here than India. And if they are not willing to what's the word, accommodate and learn how to live in this lifestyle, then maybe it's not for them. But I'm already starting to see some elements when I walk around and seeing some how Indian individuals are behaving. One thing for sure I want to share here with the community: I am not generalizing. Let me just put that on the record. It's like in every ethnic group, every whatever, we cannot generalize. But what I'm seeing and where my concern is, I am looking the next 5 years, 10 years. If we keep the flow of Indians coming here, Indian citizens, it's not going to be good. So I already heard about the stories that's going on in Canada. And we do have Canadian viewers from Canada. Please share your stories if you ever heard about the destruction that some Indian communities are committing inside Canada. So this is where the problem that I'm seeing compounding on the West, but I am also going as far as saying even the Muslim countries, especially in the Middle East, is going to now start to push back against having Indian citizens. That's why the Saudis made the decision today to kick out 110,000 Indian for being involved in security violations and spying on behalf of Israel. So I will be detailing this for you on next week, so the beginning of next week. All right, let me see if Kalza sent me a text here, because usually I communicate with him on X, and just to make sure, and I'm waiting to, and in case something, usually Carl is always on time, so it just sometimes, you just never know. So yeah, he's not here yet. So but anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start, and once he gets in here, we'll continue the conversation. So I'm sure something happens I hope everything is okay, but we'll just give it a time. So and yeah, so what I was gonna address with Carl is the issue. I'm not gonna talk about India much because I am saving this analysis in case Jayant Bahandari decide to join me either Monday or Tuesday. If not, I'm gonna do it on Monday for you. So I hope he can make it. So I was gonna be talking with Carl about the idea of why all of a sudden the United States and the collective West are sort of crying foul over China's $1 trillion surplus. Makes you just wonder. And the logical question for me I will ask is, we're going to have to, meaning we, the collective West, will have to understand what led to this $1 trillion surplus. Because nothing happens in a vacuum. And this is no different, because to me, I have to contribute it to many factors. For example, just to share with you here, are we looking at a shrewd diplomacy by Beijing? That would be one of the factors for this. Are we looking at a good governance? That will be another reason for that, unlike what you are witnessing in the collective West. And I will not speak about Germany, France, UK, Spain, Portugal, Canada. I'll speak about the issues that's going on in my own country here with the massive corruption that exists. So, and this is where you're going to have to sort of ask yourself, the question is, what is contributing to this particular surplus? And this is where you start to realize the savvy tactics Beijing has been using for over years. Because the big mistake Donald Trump made, it was the assumption that at the moment he's going to put tariffs on China, China is going to cave in. That is the major strategic mistake Mr. Trump made. Unlike what he did with India or the European incompetent states, those are different, or even the Philippines or South Korea or Japan. So, and this is, in my opinion, where that mistake happened. So he didn't calculate this, or whomever was advising him, as to why this has happened. So, and there is, because we're going to have to ask ourselves that logical question. So what are they complaining about? Yeah, because if we are to look, for example, and I'm going to show you a thumbnail that I created here with my graphic designer. And for a reason, I put this specific title on it. Take a look here. Yeah. Don't blame China. Blame yourself, meaning the collective West. So, because the policies that the policies that the Washington embarked on, in comparison to those that Beijing did, you look at the results for that, and that is exactly why I am thinking in terms of you're going to have to understand the logic of this. Why all of a sudden the U.S. and the collective West are crying foul? You know, what's known in the West is that shifting the blame. Oh, let's shift the blame on the Chinese. So, no, it's not right. Because what China did what it's good for its own interest, for its own strategic interest. It's what's for its own people, the welfare, the economic welfare of its people. And that is where you combine that good governance with the shrewd diplomacy, with the savvy tactics, and of course, the ability to push back against the Americans. And that's exactly where you see the results of what's led to this particular surplus. Of course, there are those who's going to say, oh, no, the Chinese been dominating the other markets because of subsidies and cheap labor and so forth. Well, wait a minute. We are doing the same. Germany has done the same for some of its industries, like Volkswagen, for example. France has done the same for Peugeot, you know, the same for in Canada, the same in the US. So what makes the case for China different? And this is, again, when you realize that double standard. And given what's going on in Europe, because they are realizing the downfall of their economy. And that's one of the ideas I'm going to be talking to you about regarding Europe as a continent, the old continent that is, part of that geopolitical outlook. So that's the only way I see it. So when you start to realize you have an individual, like the one you're seeing on a picture, that is the one causing all this downturn in economy, that is the one that's causing the misery in Europe. And by the way, she just agreed with Bill Gates on some other aspects of, you know what Bill Gates is involved in. You know, this is what she's pushing for. And you start to realize, okay, why are you blaming the Chinese for your own misery? Because what's going on in Europe is out of its own fault. What's going on in the US is our own fault, meaning the government. You know, you all remember my conversation with James Bradley and how he talked about the financial outlook. You know, he's spot on. Because if you look at where things are here in America, of course, the media is not going to disclose all this. And they won't, for whatever reason. That is part of where this problem is. So what they end up doing is they're going to shift the blame. Let's just blame the Chinese for that. Oh, we are not happy with this surplus because the Chinese shutting down their market and dumping the cheap stuff. No, you're the one who went and looked for the Chinese markets way back. What do you think was going to happen? Do you think the Chinese weren't going to learn how to make things? Do you think the Chinese will not learn how to make things efficient? Do you think the Chinese will not develop their own processes regarding the economy, the development, the production? You know, all this, the collectivists didn't think about it. Why? Because they thought in terms of profit. That's all it was. You know, the American government, that's what it did with the multinational corporations here. Oh, let's just go to China. We don't worry about China. We don't care. All of a sudden, when China stood on its feet, flexed its economic muscles, all of a sudden, and show this in a surplus. You know, tell me if it was any other country that has reached $1 trillion plus dollar in surplus in the history of the world. So, and I'll challenge whomever, at least based on my knowledge, there is no country, to my knowledge, and please, if you know one before China, please share it with the community. So, no, I reached that. And all of a sudden, we are turning. Even when you look at, for example, what France and Mexico did. You'll remember when Emmanuel Macron went to France, right? And they provided him with the red carpet treatment and so forth. And yet, the moment he turned back to Paris, he stabbed the Chinese in the back by imposing tariffs. The same thing what's her name? The Shinba from Mexico. So turned on the Chinese. And this is the country, by the way, that's been voicing its interest in joining BRICS. Even with that, I'd rather have Mexico than have India, to my opinion. And the reason I'm saying this is because of the double standard. At least it's worse with India than it is with Mexico. But suffice it to say, when we are thinking in terms of the collective West vis-a-vis this particular surplus, the Chinese, you've seen, because the collapse of Europe is inevitable. So what they're going to do to distract the masses is by diverting attention. It's no different than what Trump is doing right here. Did he embark on some good stuff? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. One of them is the limitation of the H-1B visa for Indians. I'm glad he's doing that. But it doesn't apply just to the Indians. You're going to have to apply it to others. And this is one of the disturbing information I'm going to share with you next week regarding what's going on to Christians in India, which, by the way, it happens also in another location in the world. And I'm going to disclose it with you along with the pictures of that. Because regardless, whether you're Christian or not, and this is not about defending Christianity, this is about what's right. What's right. There is a difference between right and wrong. And apparently the behavior that I've been witnessing, I've been disturbed this last few days, seeing the images coming out of India. It really disturbed me. Usually I don't react emotionally to things. But when I saw that, it's kind of, it's beyond belief. And once again, has nothing to do with whether Christianity is the best. It's not about that. It is about the right of those minorities. They have the right to celebrate whatever feels comfortable with them, as long as they don't sort of violate the rights of others and so forth. So what gives the fanatic Hindus to go ahead and destroy the Christmas celebrations? That's, to me, again, it's what's right versus right. It's right or wrong. There is no other. Let me check one more time here for... yeah, apparently Karza is not coming here. So I'll continue this conversation here and we'll do it some other time. So, and as I said, he's usually on time, and things, it just didn't happen this time around. So now, this paves the way for me. And I had those kind of questions for Carl. And when we do the live stream with Carl, I'll find out again when he will be available. And I will ask him the same questions if you would like to hear his perspective. And it is worth it. It's worth hearing Carl's perspective onto this. Someone I trust his judgment, and because he has substance when it comes down to these kind of issues. He doesn't talk on the top of his head. So that's, to me, why. So now, the other big issue that I am comfortable talking about, not in detail as far as the scientific aspects of it, but to put it in perspective regarding this $1 trillion surplus, as to why the US and the European, some countries in Europe are crying foul, is the idea of how this development, the production of the Chinese, both economically and technologically. And what do I mean by technological aspects here? Is the equivalency of the Chinese scientific breakthrough. The EUV machines. So, and you just think about the economic and the geopolitical significance of this, the impacts on industries, the impacts on AI, the military technology or production of weapons, and so forth. All this gives you an idea as to what even the US were trying to prevent. Yeah, they were trying to prevent the Chinese from reaching that level. They couldn't. They just couldn't do it. So the idea is, you think about the contribution of this $1 trillion, where it has been contributed into sort of different topics into all this. For example, when you think about this record breaking of $1 trillion, you have to put it within the context of what the US stated during the national security strategy, especially on page, if I recall, if my memory serves me well, page 22. I'm going to share the link with you guys here, so you can read it yourself if you want to. I'm going to put the PDF from the White House here, and you don't have to read it in its entirety. Just go to page 22, and you will understand what I'm referring to here. So, and this is where you think in terms of this idea of, okay, this is what exactly the Chinese were able to develop. And that's where the difference is. And of course, it is easier for the US and the collective West to shift the blame, because it will expose their shortcomings. So that is the way I see it playing out here. And again, that's just my opinion. How to me, this idea of thinking in terms of what the Chinese were able to achieve. Now, on this issue of the EUV, which, by the way, the Chinese been working about it for a long time quietly, and the US was trying to prevent it. They couldn't. The Chinese had far they just had a plan. They just say it straightforward. They had a plan, and they succeeded on this. So, and this is where this particular work on this EUV was done in a top secret facility, to my knowledge. So, yeah, the US couldn't. There's nothing could do about it, because that's it. So because this EUV, based on what my understanding, and I am no chip specialist in my area, I understand the basics of it. It's just what I understood from reading the white paper coming out of Washington regarding this, is that this EUV lithography, which is a cutting edge technology. So the key to this is that this particular technology, using about 13.5 nanometer light to etch incredibly fine patterns for making the most advanced semiconductor chips. So, and by the way, when you get to this level, you are able to make these chips even smaller. So, and not only smaller and advanced, but also more powerful devices. And this specifically, in my opinion, is geared towards specific technologies, specific sectors. We're looking at AI, artificial intelligence. We're looking at smartphones, and we're looking at supercomputers, especially when it comes down to Chinese, because it's leapfrogged over the West regarding the quantum computing. So, and this is where you have this kind of capabilities that the Chinese were able to achieve. Then you add on the top of this the $1 trillion surplus. And all this, once again, it's not happening in a vacuum. This has some sort of a strategy behind it, a plan. It's because the Chinese tends to think in terms of the next decade, 2, 3, or even 4 or 5. We don't. And that is, I'm still going to do this when next time Carl comes in here. We're still going to do this. I'm sure something major happens to Carl that he couldn't make it. Let me once again just to see here. Yeah, there is no, excuse me, there is no answer here. There's no message from him. So that means he's not coming this time. All right. So, and as I said, all you put this within the context of what's going on in Europe. Because what's going on in Europe, it reflects negatively as far as the policies policies embarked on by the European governments versus the surplus of the Chinese and the policies embarked on by the policymakers in Beijing. Two separate worlds on the opposite end of the spectrum. When you look at the massive eruptions, especially from farmers. So, and you all remember, and I'm going to play it for you again. Let me just share the link with you here, and we'll play it again because it's heartbreaking, but truth matters. That's the only way I can say it. So, and I know you guys saw this before. We played it, but I'm going to play it again for you because it's worth listening to what this gentleman had to say. Take a listen here.
We're just absolutely fucked as farmers, guys. Everything is so fucked, and I do not see anybody surviving this farm crisis that we're in. Guys, look, one of the best splorn crops that I have ever raised in my life. And because of the tariffs, China will not fucking buy it. And they are the only country in the world other than, well, they are the only country in the world that buys splorn. And so now I'm literally just chopping it, blowing it on the fucking ground because it's fucking useless. It's valueless. There's nothing I can fucking do to it. I am going to need government assistance to make it through this fucking crisis until these tariffs end. Look, I've never raised a splorn crop like this, guys. And this is just fucking heartbreaking to me. I don't know how I'm going to survive. You know, Trump said he fucking loved us farmers, and here I am just blowing my splorn crop all over the ground. Hopefully he works a deal out where Antarctica and Mars will start buying this splorn and save the farmers.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It really heartbreaking. Because if you, I'm sure some of you understand the life of a farmer. So those guys get up at 5 a.m. and they are in the field till whenever, because things have to get done. And when you have the incompetent policymakers making decisions that have no bearing on the welfare of that average family, it makes your heart, it's just not right. It's not right. And this is, again, to me, where that the $1 trillion the Chinese had a surplus exposed the weakness of the European policies, of the American policies, because we don't have strategies, we don't have plans. So that's, to me, that's all the Chinese needed to. The Chinese don't need to fight. No. Let the numbers speak for themselves. And when you see what's going on, European farmers are expressing the same frustration that this American farmer did, because that's their livelihood. And this is, again, I find it convenient that if the European Union ceased to exist, because at the same time, those independent nations will end up making decisions based on their own national and strategic interest, not the interest of the bloc, the EU. But even the EU will be the elite in the EU. This is, again, where I see the difference is, and my heart goes to those farmers also in Europe. I have to worry about my country here first. This is that's like when they say to you on a plane, if you are flying and something happens, take care of yourself first, because if you are not taking care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of others. So simple as that. And this is, again, where this shift of a blame, I believe, that's why the Europeans and the Americans are crying foul, is to shift the blame, no more, no less, because they don't have a solid argument on which to base the idea of how come China achieved this $1 trillion plus, this $1 trillion surplus. So they must have done something good. Why can we do it? Why aren't we doing it? And once again, it concerns me, big deal, because that will be part of my analysis that I'm going to do for you next week, especially for my American viewers. What's lying here? What's coming up? Trump or not, doesn't matter, because the whole system is flawed. And you all know what happened when you have a building. Think of this analogy. You have a building that has so many cracks in it, and you start chipping on the foundation. What do? How much can you renovate? How many band-aid you can put on that structure? You're only left with one option, and one option only. If you want to build a solid building, you have to demolish the building and rebuild. Of course, you're not going to use the same ingredients you used, the same products you used. You're going to do something different. This is where the West, the collective West, is at this point, beginning of the end. I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being realistic. Truth matters for us to understand where all this is going, and that's again where we are seeing this moving forward. And I had one question for Carl regarding his forecast and outlook for 2026. I'm gonna save this for him. For me, I'm gonna do it for you in a live stream. I hope you can join me next week if your schedule permits. I'm doing 2 or 3 main videos before the end of the year, so make sure to join me for that. I'm going to reach out to Carl tomorrow and see exactly what is going on. Once again, I hope he's okay, and we'll just go from there and see what's going on. So it was just a notification here from someone who bought me coffee for my upcoming Asia trip. So it says someone, no names. So bought me a few cups of tea. So, and speaking of that, as you know, I have set now that I'm going to be heading out to Asia again for my 3rd trip here. No dates has been set yet, but it will be a few months from now. Probably looking at about 8 months from the beginning of next year. So, and that's basically what it's going to be. I'll fill you in detail. So once I get to that one. So let me first say thank you to Kevin Baptist. Thank you so much for your continued support, Kevin. Truly appreciate you, man. I want you to know how grateful I am. So you wrote, China very existence is an existential threat to the West because it represents a tangible economic and social alternative to the absolute debacle that is the US and its Western cohorts. Spot on, Kevin. I couldn't agree more. And again, I feel comfortable enough to say I saw with my own eyes. So I'm speaking also based on experience. I was on the ground. I saw those major developments. I saw how people are living, content, comfortable about what their government is doing. You know, even if I am to tell you right now quickly, do you all remember the former foreign minister, right? You all remember the guy who got involved in some shady stuff? Disappeared, you know. Or those who are saying, oh, Chinese disappear people. No. He disappeared from the scene, but because he's been dealt with according to the law, their laws. Remember that defense minister who got involved in briberies? What happened to him? You know, this is when you realize a system that is working on behalf of its people. So I understand what you are saying, Kevin, because I saw all this with my own eyes. So thank you once again. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate you. So, and to all of you, sorry, Carl couldn't make it. Once again, let's hope he's okay. I'm gonna check on him first thing tomorrow morning, see what's going on. Hopefully, nothing serious. And once I found out his schedule, we can reschedule this and redo this one with him, because I want you to listen to his perspective. So I just wanted to share with you my own thoughts about where I saw this going, and also to let you know about what I'm planning on doing next week for the live streams, especially with my comprehensive analysis about the geopolitical outlook for 2026. I look forward to seeing you then. As always, remember, geopolitics impacted daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.